I mean, I could even get a book on criticizing the Federal Reserve, Meltdown. I could get that on TV. I can't get Nullification on TV. That no one wants to talk about it. Except Judge Napolitano, once again, he is fearless. But all these blowhards who, talk about being great patriots and whatever, when push comes to shove, what that really means is, vote Republican in 2010 and shut your mouth. That's what it boils down to. So this is not to be touched or mentioned. So my view is, well, all right, you don't want to talk about it, it's fine. We're going to do it anyway. I mean, eventually you are going to have to report on it. And when they do, by the way, they will then do everything they can to appear as if they've been driving this particular bandwagon the whole time. They won't actually admit that they just jumped on it 10 seconds earlier. But this is, to me, at least as astonishing as the Federal Reserve becoming an issue. Because I'm a U.S. historian by training, and that's what I do for a living, basically. And I have made some videos about nullification just because that's what a historian does, talks about old things. And I just did them as a historian. I did not at any time in these videos say, now today we got to grab the bull by the horns here and really try and reinsert this. It's impossible, right? So why even talk about it? And yet, then I saw that there were some Tea Party groups that were linking to my videos on nullification. That's when I thought, maybe I better write the book, because if they're going to do this, I want to be part of it. I want to, help to any degree I can. But also, I want to provide them the ammunition they're going to need when they get smeared, which they inevitably will be. So I wanted to do this, and so this is beginning to happen. This is beginning to happen. So we're seeing things like in Connecticut, the race for Attorney General, the Republican nominee. Has anybody heard of Martha Dean? She's very interesting. I posted this on my site last week. I don't blog that often, but I have a site, tomwoods.com. One of the recent posts has her face on the YouTube still shot. She's the Republican nominee in Connecticut, and she was giving a speech. And, Connecticut is not exactly known for being, sympathetic to this sort of thing. She gives this speech talking about, the federal government's out of control, and, I thought, oh, all right, good. Then she says, and if I'm elected, I will join the lawsuit against Obamacare. And I thought, well, conventional, but better than nothing. And then she says, and I support legislative measures to nullify unconstitutional federal laws. And the cigarette just fell right to the floor. I don't smoke. I just said what? Would that have been talked about 2 years ago? No, it doesn't matter if she wins or not. The point is that suddenly this is being mentioned. There's a little tour going on that the 10th Amendment Center has put on, called 10th Amendment Center and some other groups. Campaign for Liberty is a national co-sponsor. It's called Nullify Now, and all the dates are at nullifynow.com. And that's starting next week in Fort Worth. And it's going to continue into Orlando, October 10th, 2010, because what date is that? 10/10/10. Got to do something. 10th Amendment related on that day. So at that event, we have a lot of speakers, including me. I'll be there. But what's really interesting about that is that Gary Johnson's going to be one of the speakers in Orlando. And the significance of this, which I trust will not be lost on you guys, is that Gary Johnson, as some of you know, is a former governor of New Mexico, two-term governor, 2-to-1 Democrat state. He wins as a Republican. He vetoes more bills than all other governors combined. He gets re-elected. And I think he's going to run for president in 2012. So in other words, the point is not that you should vote for Gary Johnson. That's a separate thing. The point is that this is a former governor of an American state, two-term governor, whose profile is rising, who is actually going to speak publicly at a nullification rally. So it will be harder for certain conservative television personalities to pretend this isn't happening. Eventually it will have to be acknowledged. Now let me just briefly say something about nullification. You guys know what it is, but I want to talk about it in terms of one of my favorite speeches of all time was given by a guy named Michael Bolton. And I know you're thinking, oh, you mean that cheesy singer? No, that's Michael Bolton. And no, to all the women in the room, I don't really mean he's cheesy. I'm just kidding. He's a perfectly fine singer. But Michael Bolton heads the 10th Amendment Center, a wonderful organization, 10thamendmentcenter.com. Well, Bolton is giving this Tea Party speech, April 15th. And he's giving it to this outdoor group of just regular Americans, just decent, regular people. They know something is wrong. Maybe they haven't got it 100%, but a lot of these people are trying. They're grasping for something. So he goes out there and he gives this rip-roaring speech, but it's so beautiful. They don't quite get it at first. That's what makes it so beautiful. He persuades them in 15 minutes. He starts off by saying, look what they're doing. They're doing this, they're doing this, they're doing this. There's just no stopping these people. Yeah, that's right. What's with these people? We got to stop them. And then Bolden says, now, how should we go about that? I mean, should we sue them in their own courts? And everybody cheers. Yeah, let's sue them. That's sort of like Bolden's argument as well. I'm not so sure that's the most effective way. He says, well, all right. He says, well, should we just vote them out and get a new bunch of them in? Yeah, let's vote them out and get a new bunch of them in. He says, all right. He says, well, I'm afraid I might tick some of you people off. It's not really my intention. But then he goes on and talks about the Virginia and Kentucky resolutions of 1798. Total silence. Like you could hear a pin drop, you hear crickets. No one's ever heard of these documents. And it's not to make fun of them. How would they? Where would you hear about the Virginia and Kentucky resolutions? The documents in which nullification was first explicitly presented to the American public. Hear nothing about them. He talks about them. And he says, he gives the whole basic argument that, you cannot expect the federal government to limit itself. Something other than the federal government has to do the limiting. And the natural candidate for that job is the states. And then he goes on and explains what nullification is. The states saying that we will not permit the enforcement of this law in this state because, unlike you, we respect the Constitution. So we can't allow this to go on here. Well, at that point, then they start getting intrigued by this. Well, we never knew that Jefferson said that. And Madison says the states are duty-bound to resist. Whoa, what is this? By the end of the speech, they're cheering like, hey, wait, when do we get started? When do we start nullifying? When do we do it? So it goes to show there is a potentially gigantic audience for this. There is an audience of people out there that is skeptical of just being told, well, Dick Morris says I should vote for so-and-so. I mean, really, Dick Morris speaking to Tea Party groups, I mean, that is an obscenity. I mean, really, that, we got to wonder, does the First Amendment even allow that? I mean, Dick Morris is like, I don't need to tell you, he's this Fox News commentator, but, he was close with the Clintons, and then he jumped off of that ship, and then betrayed them, and then suddenly now he's some conservative deep thinker who writes a book every 3 months. Now, I don't know, okay, I've been writing a lot of books myself, but I'm not so sure he's writing his books, and believe me, I'm writing mine. I got the exhaustion and lack of sleep and hallucinations to prove it. But all the same, here's a guy who's trying to keep the Tea Party tame and totally ineffectual. Just stay on the plantation, do as you're told, throw these bums out, because I got a whole list of bums I want to get on the gravy train. No, there are a lot of people who are skeptical of that. And when you explain what we're saying, it resonates with them. And in fact, the first leg of this Nullify Now tour, you know who the co-sponsors are for the Fort Worth one? Well, if you look at it, if you go to nullifynow.com, you click on the Fort Worth event, it's not just the Campaign for Liberty group, it's not just 10th Amendment Center, it's several local Tea Parties, it's the 912 groups. Even though Glenn Beck won't talk about nullification, his own people are out ahead of him. Glenn, it'd be nice to have you on board, but we're doing this anyway, so, too bad. And it's all these sort of interesting groups that sometimes are antagonists with each other and don't see eye to eye, but they're all coming together for this thing. That's great. And this is going to get some publicity. This is going to build. Orlando's going to have a zillion people at that thing. I don't know where all these people. It's like Orlando is like number 2 on the Free State Project list, like the Free State of Orlando. Every event they have, it's like you can't fit the people. Like the fire department's trying to shut the thing down every time. It's incredible. So suddenly we are managing to draw in some of these folks. But yes, it was in these documents, these Kentucky, Virginia resolutions of 1798, that we see this doctrine. And one of the great contributions of my friend Kevin Goodsman in his work, and he's really the world's, this is not a joke, probably the world's foremost expert on early Republican Virginia. So the period in Virginia history, late colonial, early Republic period of the history of Virginia, he knows more about it than anyone on earth. And what he has shown, and this is sort of what I put with credit, of course,